Dragon Age Inquisition is probably one of my least favorite games I've ever played, not because it's a bad game, but because it's filler. It's like watching Naruto. There's so much goddamn filler. There's so much unnecessary bullshit that you really could cut and the story would be better for it. Dragon Age Inquisition is essentially like Naruto the anime. It's mostly filler. There's very few things in Dragon Age Inquisition that are noteworthy or important. A lot of the areas in this game are just there to pad out the runtime, and that is done because the main quest, even with all of the DLC expansions, is relatively short. I actually clocked in and kept track during my actual playthrough, which I was not able to get the footage of, but I did screenshot a couple stuff, and I did take shots with my phone of a bunch of stuff from that gameplay playthrough. But I kept track of all of the main story quests specifically and how much total time combined each of them equated to. The final total was about 8.5 hours, and that's rounding up. It was realistically 8 hours and 25 minutes and 42 seconds. That's how long the main quest in this game is. It is the shortest main quest in all of Dragon Age's history. Now, some people will say that Dragon Age Origins has the same problem, but it doesn't. Dragon Age Origins had no filler. All of the side options that you could do in that game all helped with the final boss fight of the game. All of your choices in Dragon Age Origins mattered because they all affected the final outcome of how prepared you would be in the final boss fight in Dinnerum against the Archdemon and its forces. Hell, Dragon Age 2, almost all of the side content except for about 5 to 6 missions were important to Hawke because they expanded upon the current crisis he was dealing with in each of the 3 acts of that game. Because that game was so compacted into one location, almost everything was connected, which made the overall experience better for me, even if there was a lot of issues that I pointed out in my last video about it. Dragon Age Inquisition has a lot of large open spaces that you can explore and a bunch of quests that you can complete. The only problem is, these large open spaces are mostly empty, and the game plays like a fucking MMO with a bunch of busy work that you have to complete instead of actual real quests that have some real connection to what you're trying to do. All of it is framed like it's helping the Inquisition. All of it is framed like you're actually causing things to happen. Things are actually going to affect the world as a whole. It's not true. You could literally ignore most of that side content and just get to a point where you can buy power, which is the thing that gatekeeps you from doing the main quest. The only reason you do the side quest is to gain power. There's not really any other reason to do it. It's all to gain power so you can do the next main story quest line. But once you start getting to Skyhold and you learn about the bug where you can duplicate shit and sell all that stuff off and generally make a shit ton of money, and you buy the merchant through the war table. Oh god, the war table. Nonetheless, you buy that one merchant that sells you stuff that will equate to power that you can spend. You effectively no longer need to do any of the side content, because you can just duplicate your most expensive items over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, get even better equipment, duplicate all of that shit, which will get you more money in return, and then sell off all the duplicates, and then buy all the power that you need. And then just run through the main quest line. I did a second playthrough where I just did that, just to see if it was possible to ignore all of the side content and Believe it or not, folks, it was. It was so much easier. It took me, literally, by comparison of me doing my first canonical playthrough for this review versus that other playthrough, which only lasted about 2 days just to see if I could do it. The total hours is a drastic difference. In my canonical playthrough, me doing almost everything there was to do in that game, that totaled out to about 89 hours and some change in minutes. The other playthrough that took 2 days to complete, 12.5 hours. That's how long it took me to beat the game. Doing a lot of side content to get the power before I could get to Skyhold, then going to Skyhold, doing the duplication glitch as many times as necessary, buying all the power that the vendor had to sell, spending all the power and influence necessary, and then just bomb rushing through all of the main story quest lines as well as all the DLC content. It was a cakewalk. And the gameplay is so easy, even on the hardest difficulty, if you build your character right, which is impossible to fail, by the way. You cannot fuck up your build no matter what in this game, unless you just choose every goddamn thing at random and never go down specific enough paths to get any real progress. It is so easy to keep yourself from having to deal with that. Don't get me started on specializations. Actually, you know what? Yeah, let's get started on specializations. Dragon Age Origins offered up to 3 specializations for each class. The level cap was 40. I shit you not. What the hell kind of a downgrade? Dragon Age 2 had 2 specializations. The level cap was 25 in the base game. With the DLC, it got up to 30. Dragon Age Inquisition, its level cap at the end, getting to the most highest level possible in the game, is 40. You get 1 specialization. Why? Because they nerfed almost everything in the game. Mages only have the primal school of magic, and they only get 3 specific types of choices for that school: cold, lightning, or fire. They completely said fuck you to earth and wind for primal. Oh god. And then they cut half of the spells out. Oh god. What did they... Look how they massacred my boy. Look how they murdered my son. They fucked up, bro. They cut so much good stuff from the old games just to make this shit. It's boring to play this game outside of the story. The only good things about this game are the characters that you have as companions, and personally stuck around side characters like Josephine and Liliana and Cullen. Liliana and Cullen I really like, mostly because they're old returning characters. Liliana, I don't know what the fuck they did to her. In the first game, she was one of the most likable, most loving characters. She was fun, happy-going, and just overall a joy to deal with. I do not know what being the left hand of the divine did to this woman's fucking conscience, because she's a completely different person. Even in the second game, which technically canonically takes place a couple months prior to what happens in Inquisition, she was still acting a lot more lighthearted than how she's acting in Inquisition. They do not explain what caused this dramatic shift in her character, except for saying Josephine... No, wait, no, was it Josephine? No, Josephine is the ambassador. What was her name? The Divine. God damn it. Justinia. Divine Justinia. They said her death caused this shift in Liliana. Really? I have doubts. Look, I get people dying that are close to you can cause a dramatic shift in your character, but this shift seems unwarranted and very hard to believe. They play it up like Justinia was so important to Liliana, but you don't see any of that. You don't get any of that. Liliana in the previous games barely mentions anyone of the sort, and when you figure out who exactly she's talking about, this type of devotion to the divine doesn't make as much sense, because she has a much stronger connection to Alistair, the King of Ferelden, or even Morrigan, who she does not like much at all. Fucking shit, she has a strong ass connection depending on your playthrough, especially if you did what the game really wants to count as the canonical playthrough of that game, where she lives and you guys were the best of friends with the Grey Warden that you play as in Dragon Age Origins. This game, at times it harkens so hard to the previous games, and at other times it says, fuck that shit. Especially with how they did classes. They majorly dumbed down the mage class. I can get nerfing a class for balance sake, but this was not balance. This was butchery. They added a whole bunch of stuff to warrior and rogue, which made them better options than they used to be. The specializations for them are a lot more unique and a little bit more balanced as well. I like that. But what they did to mages, nerfing them in the way that they did, it's worse than what Dragon Age 2 did. Mages are supposed to be broken in this world, and it's reflected in the world's lore and gameplay, especially in Origins. They are very, very, very powerful DPS character classes, and their spells have a lot of variety and utility to them. They can debuff, buff, they can damage, they can stun, they can paralyze, they can do so many things with their magics. The only thing is, they're not tanky whatsoever. They are easily able to be dispatched. What does Dragon Age Origins do? It makes you feel that. If you don't invest in the proper stats in that game to actually make a tanky mage character to be able to do stuff like what I did when I was talking about Dragon Age Origins in my Dragon Age Origins video, you are going to go down fairly easily in that game. What does Inquisition do? Nerfs almost all of the spells, but still keeps the fact that you are a paper-thin tissue paper that's about to get splashed with water and then poked with a pencil. Especially because the spells that they let you have barely do any consistent enough damage to be counted as worth that issue of balance. The spells do not synergize, next to none at all, outside of stuff that is specifically for the same skill tree. You can't mix and match spell skill trees in Dragon Age Inquisitions like you could in Origins or even Dragon Age 2 to make up for spells that do less damage or are less effective unless you synergize them. This is all to say, they focused on more of the look and presentation and grand, over-the-top dramatic feel of Dragon Age Inquisition and not enough on the things that really matter to a game like this. Gameplay, good stories, and for God's sake, give me a reason to get this bullshit equipment that you're throwing at me that you want me to use more than the stuff I can craft for myself. I literally spent most of this game getting some very cool, unique looking items that were worthless compared to the shit I crafted a couple levels back that did more damage and looked not as cool, but were more beneficial to me. Hell, even some of the cool-looking armor and weapons that you find in the game, you can get, what is it, blueprints? No, schematics for. You could get schematics, that's the word they use for them. It's essentially the same goddamn thing. You could get schematics for these weapons and armor, and you could actually make something much more effective and better. Hell, I did this with fucking the armor, the dragon slaying armor that Ameridan gives you in the Descent DLC. Not Descent, Trespasser. No. Fuck. Jaws of Hakon. Jesus Christ. I'm so upset about just talking about this stuff. Like my brain is trying to push the right words out, so but it's getting clogged up. Nonetheless, the stuff that Ameridan gives you in the little chest by where you talk to him after you beat the mini-boss fight, before you talk to Ameridan, and after you talk to Ameridan, there's a chest that you can finally open, and it has a bunch of cool stuff from him in there. The only problem is, you can get schematics in that same goddamn chest, or maybe it's the after the boss fight with Hakon himself. Anyway, you could essentially go and customize and make your own variant of that same armor and weapon type, and lo and behold, you can build it a lot more effectively and better overall than what they try to give you. A lot of RPGs have crafting mechanics like this, but they always put in unique items that are much more effective and worthy of being used than the stuff you can craft to try and balance it out. That's not saying nerf crafting, that means beef up the unique items you're giving me, game! Especially in the Trespasser DLC, when you get the best armor and the best weapons, and you even get the one and only item set in the entire game. And you can still craft the armor and weapons through schematics that you find, and you can build it a lot better than the stuff you find. Nonetheless, there's one thing in this game that I love more than anything. The companions. Specifically, Iron Bull, Varric, Dorian, Cole, and Solus. Essentially, all of the male characters, except for Cullen. Cullen, I like him, but I have problems with him. He's not that bad, though. I like his character arc. It's a good character arc for the character, but it wasn't given enough attention that it should have. Liliana, I don't know what the fuck they did to this character. I've already gone on about why I have problems with that. Josephine, I romanced her. I liked her. Still think they should have added more to her character, especially to the romance for her. A lot of this game just needed more time and attention. They cut so much stuff in this game that they should have kept and just worked on some more. It would have made this game so much better. If you actually look at some of the earlier trailers and the earlier interviews that they had about this game, there was so much stuff that they talked about that got cut that would have made this game a lot more better, in my opinion. Nonetheless, I absolutely mostly hate the female characters that are in this game. Cassandra is an exception because she has a decent, somewhat character arc that's not really a character arc, but she can change depending on how you talk with her and everything. I think they did a decent job with it. Sarah and Vivian, however, I wish they were real so I could fucking strangle them. They are some of the worst characters in this goddamn fucking franchise. Now, you might think that that means that I'm probably someone that you should never let around anyone that you love and care about that's a female. No, I'm not the only one who feels this way. Almost all of the Dragon Age community hates Vivian, and about half of that community hates Sarah too. Because these characters don't have any character arc, they're trying to use and manipulate you, or they're just dumbasses that will get you killed in a real-life scenario. Nonetheless, despite it all, the characters I do like make me come back to this game, which is why I stomached another playthrough, even a much shorter one, because I liked those characters. I'm going to end this video here. Pray for me as I finish Pathfinder Kingmaker. Because God help us all on that game. I have so much to say about that game. Thank you all for watching. God bless. You all have a wonderful night.